It all started on a seemingly normal Monday morning. The sun rose over the quiet suburban street, birds chirping, children playing, neighbors waving hello. But inside one immaculate HOA-controlled house, chaos was brewing. Karen, infamous in the neighborhood for her over-the-top enforcement of rules, was plotting what she thought would be her ultimate victory. Armed with stacks of violation notices, she marched from door to door, ready to assert dominance over every homeowner who had dared to defy her rules. Neighbors had learned to tread carefully around Karen. A crooked mailbox, a slightly overgrown hedge, or even a slightly different color flower pot could trigger her wrath. But this time, she was taking things further than ever. She had discovered a loophole, or so she thought, in the HOA's governing documents, and she intended to use it to claim an entire property for herself. Her target? The house at the end of the street, spacious, well-kept, and owned by a quiet family who had never had a run-in with her before. She arrived, clipboard in hand, and began delivering demands that seemed increasingly unreasonable. "You have 10 days to comply, or you're in violation," she shouted. But the family didn't flinch. Calm and composed, they listened politely, then quietly contacted their lawyer. Little did Karen know, this single move, the one she thought would cement her authority, was about to backfire spectacularly. Her violation notices were not just challenged, they were shredded in court. Every loophole she relied upon was countered with airtight legal arguments. Her arrogance had led her to underestimate the consequences, and now, everything was teetering on the edge of disaster. By the time the HOA board discovered what had happened, it was too late. The family had already taken steps to protect their home, and Karen's overreach was now exposed for everyone to see. Neighbors whispered, cameras captured every reaction, and social media began to buzz. What started as a simple Monday morning had spiraled into a story no one could ignore. One move. One decision. And suddenly, the unthinkable was unfolding. Karen's confidence began to crumble, her anger turned into panic, and her plans unraveled faster than she could react. The stage was set for the shocking downfall that everyone would soon witness. Karen left the house that morning with her head held high, convinced she had outsmarted the homeowners and reasserted her power over the neighborhood. She didn't realize that the family had already recorded every interaction, saving emails, text messages, and videos of her threats. Within hours, those documents would become the weapons that would dismantle her authority piece by piece. The family immediately contacted their attorney, a sharp and no-nonsense professional who specialized in HOA disputes. Within the same day, legal notices were sent to Karen, challenging her claims and highlighting the errors in her violation notices. The lawyer's letters were precise, professional, and devastatingly effective. Each argument pointed out exactly how Karen had overstepped her authority, misinterpreted the HOA rules, and potentially exposed herself to legal liability. Meanwhile, word began to spread through the neighborhood. Friends and neighbors who had tolerated Karen's antics for years suddenly felt emboldened. They shared screenshots of her messages, recordings of her confrontations, and stories of her previous overreaches. Social media quickly became a platform for exposing her behavior, and within hours, the once feared HOA enforcer found herself publicly humiliated. Karen's reaction was predictable: anger. She attempted to rally the HOA board, believing she could twist their rules and intimidate them into supporting her. But this time, the board wasn't buying it. Some members quietly admitted that they, too, were tired of her antics and wanted to see fairness restored in the community. Her threats, once effective, were now ignored or met with subtle resistance. By the evening, the first signs of real trouble appeared. A formal complaint was filed against Karen, questioning her misuse of authority and demanding a review of the HOA's actions. Her panic began to show: emails were sent late at night, phone calls were made in desperation, and every attempt to regain control failed. The neighborhood that had once feared her now watched with satisfaction as the tables turned. One by one, the pieces of her carefully constructed control slipped away. What Karen had assumed would be a small victory turned into the first domino in her downfall. Her hubris had led her into a trap she didn't even see coming, and the story was only beginning to escalate. The next morning, Karen awoke to an inbox overflowing with legal notices, complaints, and urgent messages from the HOA board. Each email, each letter, each notification chipped away at the carefully constructed image she had built over the years. For the first time, she felt the weight of accountability pressing down on her. What she had thought would be a simple assertion of power had become a full-blown legal nightmare. Her first instinct was denial. She insisted that she had done nothing wrong, that the homeowners had misunderstood the HOA rules, and that the board should support her. But reality was harsher than her ego could handle. The documentation the family had compiled, photos, videos, timestamps, and legal interpretations, left no room for argument. The case against her was airtight, and for the first time, Karen realized she might actually lose something she valued deeply, her home. The HOA board, previously intimidated by her reputation, finally spoke up. In a series of tense virtual meetings, they reviewed every complaint and notice Karen had issued in the past year. The results were damning. Multiple violations were issued without proper procedure, fines were applied incorrectly, and her interpretation of rules was consistently flawed. The board, which had often been silent in fear, now found justification to act decisively. Karen's authority had crumbled, and her peers were no longer willing to back her up. Meanwhile, the homeowners continued to push forward. Their attorney escalated the matter to the court system, filing formal motions to ensure that Karen could no longer interfere with their property. As news of the legal battle spread, neighbors began sharing their own stories. Some had quietly suffered from her overreach for years, and now they were eager to testify. Social media buzzed with shock, anger, and even dark amusement as Karen's misdeeds became widely known. Panic began to set in. Karen, who had always relied on intimidation, found herself powerless. Calls went unanswered, emails were ignored, and legal deadlines loomed over her like dark clouds. Every attempt to assert control only seemed to accelerate her downfall. By the end of the week, the reality was unavoidable. The home she had once tried to claim, the house she had believed was hers to control, was slipping out of her grasp entirely. The neighborhood watched in stunned silence as the legal storm intensified. Karen's hubris had brought her to this point, and there was no turning back. Each decision, each reckless move, had led her closer to complete loss. The stage was set for the next, most dramatic chapter of her downfall, one that would shock everyone who thought they knew her. By now, Karen's reputation was in tatters. The once feared HOA enforcer was no longer the person neighbors whispered about in fear. She had become the center of a community spectacle. Word spread quickly. Karen had overstepped her authority, targeted a family unjustly, and now faced consequences that were impossible to ignore. What had started as a single reckless move was rapidly snowballing into a full-blown public humiliation. Neighbors who had previously stayed silent now felt empowered. Some came forward with their own stories of petty fines, baseless warnings, and aggressive confrontations. Their testimonies, combined with the documented evidence from the targeted homeowners, painted a vivid picture of a woman abusing the power she had been entrusted with. Social media feeds exploded with screenshots, video clips, and commentary, many posting sarcastic captions or sharing memes about Karen's downfall. The story became viral almost overnight, turning a local HOA dispute into a cautionary tale for communities everywhere. Karen, oblivious to the extent of her exposure, tried desperately to regain control. She sent emails to board members pleading for leniency, attempted to call neighbors to intimidate them into silence, and even considered legal countersuits. But every effort was met with resistance or outright refusal. The HOA board, once her silent enablers, had now become her greatest obstacle. They had proof, legal advice, and the neighborhood's backing. Karen was isolated in every sense. Meanwhile, the family she had targeted remained calm and composed, their home fully secured, their rights clearly defended. The homeowners had not only protected themselves but also inadvertently inspired others to stand up against Karen's overreach. Their attorney made sure that every legal step was transparent and public, highlighting Karen's mistakes in a way that made it impossible for her to spin the narrative in her favor. By midweek, the pressure was undeniable. Karen's once confident demeanor had eroded into frustration, panic, and disbelief. Calls went unanswered, messages were ignored, and her attempts to manipulate the situation only further alienated her from the community. The realization finally dawned on her: the neighborhood, the board, and the law were all aligned against her. She was losing not just control but her very home, the ultimate symbol of her failed authority. The stage was set for the final act. Everything Karen had built, her control, her reputation, and her home, was unraveling. And now, everyone waited for the shocking conclusion that would cement her fall from power forever. The day had arrived. Karen stood outside her house, clipboard in hand, but this time, it wasn't authority she felt, it was dread. The legal notices, the board decisions, and the community backlash had finally culminated in an unavoidable reality: her home, once a symbol of her power and control, was officially taken from her. The foreclosure notice gleamed in the sunlight, a stark reminder that one reckless move could destroy everything she had built. Neighbors gathered discreetly, some curious, some quietly satisfied. Cameras from local reporters and social media users captured her reactions in real time. The once feared HOA enforcer, who had spent years imposing rules and instilling fear, now faced the ultimate consequence: public humiliation. Her anger, frustration, and disbelief were evident, but there was no one left to defend her. The power she had wielded so confidently had evaporated completely. Inside the house, lawyers and bank officials completed the final paperwork. Karen tried one last desperate attempt to negotiate or reverse the decision, but it was too late. Every loophole she had relied upon was exhausted, every argument dismissed. Her attempts to manipulate the board or intimidate neighbors had failed spectacularly. The system she had once tried to control now worked decisively against her. The family she had targeted, calm and composed throughout the ordeal, stepped forward to witness the final moments. They had acted lawfully, ethically, and strategically, protecting their home while exposing Karen's overreach. Their perseverance highlighted a powerful truth: arrogance and abuse of authority carry consequences. Karen's fall served as a cautionary tale not only for her but for anyone who believed they were untouchable. As Karen packed up her belongings and prepared to leave, the neighborhood exhaled collectively. The tension that had gripped the street for weeks finally lifted. Social media exploded with videos and commentary, turning her loss into a viral story of justice served. Her actions, once feared, had backfired in spectacular fashion. The house that had symbolized power and control now stood as a monument to the consequences of hubris. In the end, one reckless move destroyed everything. Karen's authority, reputation, and home all gone. The lesson was clear: no amount of intimidation, rules, or threats can protect you from the consequences of overreach. Her story would be remembered, shared, and recounted, a powerful reminder of how quickly power can collapse when abused. The shocking story is over, but the lesson remains: arrogance has a price, and karma is real.